He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Bat Minute and Robin. This is the podcast where we longingly gaze out each window of Batman and Robin 1 minute at a time. Like, really stuck for like something to like attach to this particular minute. But yeah, I'm one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And I am your other host, John Parker, the host that can control death.
Just choosing not to. It's like,
yeah,
no one ever asks. So,
well, you know, it's a lot of responsibility. I can do it,
too much work.
But you know.
Yeah,
the paperwork alone.
But yeah, and we're also joined today by returning guests from the previous two episodes, DC Cinematic Minutes, Mark and Nate.
Howdy.
Hey,
hello.
Thanks for dropping by for the last time this week, guys.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us on. Is this going to be the last time we guest on?
No, we'll be covering
podcast?
Maybe not minute by minute, but in some format, we'll be covering other Batman movies, and you guys are of course welcome to come on whenever we're doing them. So
yeah, absolutely. I don't think we have quote unquote ownership of the Batman movie. I don't think that's part of our cinematic universe. So I think that's up for
the
you.
real trouble is going to come when Keaton Flash lands. It's going to be like, well,
the Flash movie might be tough. If you want to do a quad hosted podcast, we might be able to swing that one.
No matter what, I mean, even if we don't do it properly, we're at least going to do a bonus thing.
Yeah, or it's just going to have to be a fight to the death.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to that. So.
Well, that's the thing with the next lot of, we're not going to announce yet what we're going to do because we haven't decided fully yet either. But Niall said we might not do it minute by minute. We might not, but we might. The things coming up, we've got a lot of ideas on the table. The original plan years ago was to stop after this one, but we're not going to stop. Something is coming.
We're now in that the DiCaprio and the Wolf of Wall Street bit of like announcing his last day and stuff, and then going, you know what? I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving.
Leaving.
I'm not leaving.
That's us. We're not going. You're not getting rid of us.
Although we're nowhere near done with this particular movie yet, because we're only on minute 54 of
minute 4. Oh no!
Yep, Arnie's just been introduced, and but yeah, minute 54 of Batman and Robin begins with Alfred pontificating as is his wont, and it ends a minute later with Barbara Wilson doing some flipping. Apologizing for the flipping, actually. But within the opening seconds here, though, now we get, Alfred talking about, like, he finishes his thought of, to control death itself. And I kind of like this in that I have a bit of problems with Alfred's treatment of his condition and, what he says about, like, a gentleman never discusses his ailments and stuff later on in the movie.
It's very English.
Yeah, but I do kind of like that this would seem to be as close as he's going to get to telling Bruce Wayne, I'm dying.
Well, this is my question, actually. I wrote this as a note. Is this him revealing to Bruce, I'm dying? Is that what is happening here? Because Bruce seems to have a kind of a face of, I understand.
I think it's, Bruce's sort of, world's greatest detective has been deducing that something's up for a while due to Alfred's behavior. And Alfred saying something like this in a frank manner is kind of like, it is I understand. Like, he doesn't want to have to discuss it. These two guys are, Batman's a guy emotionally mixed up as he is in that, to grieve his parents' death, he dresses up in a rubber outfit and beats the crap out of people. The two of them aren't great at communication and working through emotion, I guess. So
again, very English, though.
Yeah. It could also, maybe that's the stiff upper lip raising of Bruce Wayne is actually entirely to blame for Batman.
That's what it is. It's Batman is English at the end of the day. But no, so that little nod he gives Alfred when he's talking about this, do you think that's it then? That's the moment? Like, I get you.
Yeah.
I know what you're telling
He'll
me.
never...
Because you could argue that
It
Bruce has
should
known
be.
the whole time, but that's far less interesting.
Mm.
And he's just not told Robin, not told Dick.
Yeah, I think you could say that Bruce is known for a while, and he's waiting for Alfred to tell him. And it could be that, like, now that Alfred has this, it's very much like, okay, so now that's out. Nothing has been said, but it's out in the open now. What's going on? We both get
That's
what
always
the scenario
much
is.
better in my eyes. I don't want to have to tell someone this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell people.
Yeah.
Like when people say, how are you doing? You usually just go, I'm doing all right.
When people ask you how you're doing, John, I
Surviving.
want you now to recite what Alfred says to him. What is Batman? If not something like, what the hell are you talking about?
They'll assume I'm just talking about my podcast and I've gone insane. Because this show has driven me insane.
Well, although I should also mention, we are now living in an era where Alfred Pennyworth is actively dead in the comics right now. God knows how long that'll last. But
6 more weeks, probably.
I actually kind of thought it was quite well done, though, because if people haven't, read up on it, it's basically Bane took over the city, and Batman was sort of kept outside, and Bane basically said he had Alfred hostage, and if Batman was to come inside Gotham, he would kill him. And so Alfred essentially takes himself out of the equation and kind of, allows Bane to kill him, basically. So Batman can actually go like, all right, I guess I'm back in action then. And they've used it to great effect, too, because, obviously the Joker, very overused character in the comics, but he has a whole thing where in the Joker War that followed on for it, he ended up using Alfred's corpse to get to Bruce Wayne and stuff in a very twisted manner. And they've actually been handling the whole death thing quite well thus far. So, yeah. Although I would say the Batman comics at the moment are on a kind of a high point for me personally. I think that post-Tom King run has been doing very, like, James Tynion. James Tynion is just on a hot streak at the minute. Like, everything he's doing is like, this guy's freaking solid. Like, he will falter eventually. But at the minute, everything he's put his pen to has been fantastic.
His Pennyworth, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really have been, Tom King and all of them, they've been doing a great job. It still makes me laugh when I think about the Batman proposal with Selena, and it's like, people really fell for that, didn't they?
Oh yeah, the internet exploded.
It's like, you guys set yourself up for that one. So when it's like, you're like, oh, I wonder when they'll bring back Alfred. It's like, listen, I wouldn't put it past them, because after the whole marriage wedding thing that they were going to do, it's like, come on, guys. Come on.
It's comic books. We all know it's all just going to get reset again at some point soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, weirdly enough, Alfred's obviously, like, in various, Elseworlds iterations, like, Injustice, Gods Amongst Us, friggin' Zaz kills Alfred, things like this. You always get little offshoots where Alfred's died. But in continuity, he's only ever died twice. One is that time he just died, like, a year or two back. And the other time was way back in June of 1964 in Detective Comics 328.
Oh, that's earlier than I would have guessed.
Yeah, that was around the time we kind of alluded to the events of this earlier in the season, where obviously they had the Seduction of the Innocent book came out, and there was the illusion by Frederick Wortham in that book that Batman, Robin, and Alfred were in a kind of homosexual scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Three guys living in a house together. And so that's when they originally introduced Aunt Harriet to sort of, throw a bucket of water on that whole scenario. And Alfred, was killed off. They, threw himself in front of a boulder that was coming for...
Jesus.
Yeah, coming for Batman and Robin. And he was, actively dead at that point for a good 2 years in the comics.
Did he
And
stop
then-
the boulder?
Yeah,
His body?
No, it kept going.
I mean, like, honestly, though, like, your
That'd be great.
idea to stop a boulder is to just throw yourself, like, you're going with it. That's a boulder.
yeah.
A boulder the size of a small boulder.
You can't stop the rock. That's them's the words.
But yeah, it doesn't reappear then until 1966, and like many things that was going on with Synergy, the upcoming Adam West TV show, and the comic books, much like the introduction of Barbara Gordon as a character. Basically, Bill Dozier said, like, I want to use Alfred. I'm into that character, and so to kind of create the corporate synergy of it, they're like, all right, we're bringing Alfred back, and the bizarre storyline. I don't know if you guys are aware of this storyline. Alfred's resurrected as a villain called The Outsider.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Batman and the Outsider. Yeah.
And it's bizarre. Like his somehow he wasn't completely crushed by this boulder. His body was apparently broken, but looks perfectly fine. Picked up by a random scientist who then takes him to his machine, resurrects Alfred, but for some reason it turns him completely white, but covered in these kind of like bumps all over his skin. He's then telekinetic, and then he launches a campaign against Batman and Robin, and it culminates. I don't think I'm saying that right, but
Culminates.
but he sends them coffins with two like robotic automatons of Batman and Robin inside that they have to fight. And then eventually, this outsider guy's a real pain in the ass. Manage to get his fingerprints, find out that it's Alfred. And then they go to confront him, and such is his bizarre powers, he turns Robin into a coffin somehow. And then
Wait, what?
yeah, he goes. They have a confrontation. He just like looks at Robin or whatever, and Robin starts to turn into a coffin. And then him and Batman are duking it out. Batman eventually emits more radiation from this machine onto the outsider, and it turns him back into Alfred. And then throughout, like, you know, the storylines up to, you know, Crisis in the 80s, Alfred would occasionally turn back into the outsider. And tragically, that's not the route they decided to go to in this movie, because that would have been amazing at the end where you think Alfred's okay, but it comes out and he's just a big, giant, muscular white guy making things fly around the room. And they're like, Part 5, coming summer of 2000 or whatever.
Oh my God, that needs to happen at some point. Oh
man.
It needs to happen.
What was that?
That would be my support for whenever some nerd on the internet is like, these movies are not comic book accurate. I'd be like, is this what you want?
That's the thing. People who argue about any movie not being comic book accurate, 99% of the time, I would say you probably haven't read the comics. Because comics are crazy.
Yeah, so you want a version of Alfred where he dies and then comes back as evil AI, because that's what happened in the Dark Multiverse, man. Like,
Yep. And that's not what they mean. And that's why I think they're full of crap.
Yeah.
He was also present in that whole Forever Evil storyline. Crime Syndicate and everything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See, so there's a million ways you can take comics accurate, because there's a million comic stories. And again, that's what I want in movies. Movies, they don't have to all be connected. Just do a standalone thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is a weird Batman movie. Cool. You could argue, in a way, without the Alfred stuff, this would be a standalone Batman movie in its own weird world.
Yeah, oh, totally. Like, I know several people who would just say, like, there is no continuity between the four of the movies, really, because Burton and Dan Waters kind of took pains to, like, don't really mention the events of 89 in Batman Returns beyond Vicky Vale. And even that could be like, well, you can take that to be continuity or not if you want to.
And
really.
you can assume from context, if you'd never seen 89, what they're talking about. Like, oh, it must be an old flame.
Yeah. And then, then beyond just like, oh, who let Vicky into the Batcave? Like, that's the only allusion to the events. I think Dan Waters said he put that in to address the fact that he thought that was ridiculous. So that was like a kind of spite mention more than anything. But even then, forever, it's just like, it might as well be completely different. Like,
Even to this.
Yeah, 100%.
The only through line, really, is Alfred. I mean, obviously we've got Gordon, but does he matter at all?
Do we have Gordon? But yeah, so we have Bruce then gazes up at, I guess, Alfred's window or a skylight or something. And
yeah, it looks like the window, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And from that, we get another ghostly specter of the past. And the weird thing, because in this obviously happened earlier in the movie where he's had the remembrance of him running down the corridor as a kid in that same corridor that he was looking down. Mm-hmm. This almost indicates to me that, like, the Waynes are buried outside Alfred's window.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting, yeah.
And it's just like...
That's weird, right?
Oh, that would be bizarre.
Oh, that is weird. Yeah.
It's like,
I didn't think about it like that.
It's like, yeah, Alfred's a very morbid guy. You just
you open the curtains, you wake up, and it's just there's the headstone right there. It's like, oh, I didn't. That is weird.
He's against all his knickknacks. He's got his two statues of kind of Batman and Robin. His bowling trophy. his picture of Peg, and then the Wayne bodies just outside his window. And like he just feels comfortable in here.
I'm so taken aback by just this use of flashback. Whatever superimposed like picture that's showing up that makes it. I thought it looks like a TV turns on, or there's like some sort of new future picture frame that you can upload your, photos from your computer to. But like, I don't know. Are you guys enjoying this? Him just looking out the window and being like, "Oh yeah, I don't know." The use of a window to use it as a means for a flashback seems like it's cool, but in practice with it here, where you're just like taking the copy pasted like picture.
I think that's the problem. Yeah, I don't know. I'm in the middle. I like the concept. It would work on the page.
Yeah, it works in a fantasy type setting where there is the notion of looking out to the window, and it is like a window into another whatever bullshit. Bull crap into another thing. But like, I don't know. It's just so. Maybe it's just too long in the 1 minute format I'm seeing here.
And it feels kind of like they threw it in last minute. Like, I don't know, George isn't really conveying the right emotion. Just put in a little flashback here.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it's probably not that interesting, but it's a double fade in. It's fade into the scene, and then it's a fade in of them. Like it's fade in, fade out, fade out. It's
unique.
It's a double fade in. It's George Clooney burying his pig.
I really enjoy it in like the sense of it being, if we were on a stage and this was a set and there was a window and a light shined through and it showed like a picture of a headstone, and if it was like as if we as the audience were able to look directly outside at the graveyard that's outside the window. That's awesome. Cool. Or if just, I don't know, like it being a stage and a set of just that being their theater and the window lighting up as if it's mentioning, a type of flashback or just calling about a memory for the character. I really enjoy that. But here where it being so, I'm so familiar with the Bat Manor and just like, how things happen in there. None of this ghostly apparition thing really has caught my eye as much as this one in the past.
I think it's fine. I think it looks great. I think just the idea that his point of view, like the physical point of view, or line of sight rather, where he looks up and out the window over Alfred, and just kind of has that envision. I think that idea as a concept is really cool.
It's great, right? But
I think so.
It's for some reason it's just not hitting 100% full steam ahead in this minute for me.
It's not anymore now that you pointed out.
I'm sorry.
Outside the window.
Well, that's the movie in a nutshell, though, isn't it? Like nothing's quite at the level it should be. And I love this film. I'm the defender.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. But
I think it's fun.
Everything that you see in this movie, you're sat there thinking, well, if they just tweaked it slightly, it'd be even better.
So you do get this kind of thing conveyed very well in Batman Begins when, like, Bruce is at the end when he's looking over, like, the burnt out husk of Wayne Manor and he picks up his father's stethoscope. And it just cuts for a split second to his dad holding up the stethoscope to him when he was a kid.
Yeah,
and it's like, that's all you needed. They didn't have to have him gazing over at the trees and seeing like his dad standing there holding up the stethoscope or something.
Remember though, this is a Batman for a very different audience to Batman Begins. I would argue this is a Batman for the masses. This is a blockbuster movie, and I know Batman Begins was huge, but I would argue that was more for the Batman fans.
Yeah.
To a degree. Like a lot of casual fans wouldn't know who's Scarecrow.
Although, speaking of like who people are, this kid playing young Bruce Wayne, he actually is somebody that you'd know. Did anyone look into this kid?
No, I knew you would.
No, please tell us.
This is an actor called Eric Lloyd, and you almost definitely would have seen him in The Santa Claus. as Tim Allen's kid.
Okay.
Throughout that franchise, he's also in Dunstan Checks In.
There's a
Dunstan checks in.
There's a minute by minute of that, isn't there?
Is there really?
Yeah, Dunstan checks Min.
Yeah. He's Jason Alexander's kid who befriends the friggin' monkey and all that business as well. And, he's in a bunch of stuff. He's in Brave Little Toaster and things like that. Goosebumps, Escape from Horrorland, the computer game, as a character called Clay. It's like no child is called Clay. That's a name for friggin' Tommy Lee Jones characters.
Clay.
It's short for Clayton.
Yeah, it just sounds like something.
Can't do the gun noise, but it's from Tarzan.
Yeah.
Apparently, his first ever role was as young Kevin Arnold in The Wonder Years, even though The Wonder Years is all about young Kevin Arnold. I thought that was who Fred Savage was in it. But
Younger Kevin Arnold.
And an episode called Brightwing. So kind of like Nightwing in a weird way.
So that should be a name that he shops around. Brightwing.
I don't know.
Brightwing.
In some ways, it almost makes more sense for Nightwing to be called Brightwing because he's a
Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And Brightwing.
Yeah, and he's meant to be representing the hope almost.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He is people always refer to Dick Grayson as Bruce Wayne's greatest success because he's basically him if everything kind of turned out better, basically.
Yeah.
If he wasn't
so screwed up.
If he wasn't Dick Grayson's a guy who kind of gets over his trauma and becomes a hero because he's a really good guy. Whereas Bruce Wayne's a guy who never gets over his trauma. And
except this Bruce Wayne, because as we've talked about, Clooney decided, he's over it.
Yeah, that was one of the bizarrest things I discovered in this show is that George Clooney up front said to Joel Schumacher, maybe just get past the whole parents' death thing. He's been a bit selfish with that, right? And you're like, I don't think you understand Batman, George, but okay.
And that's what's kind of weird about Dark Knight Rises. And that part always gets to me is the ending where Alfred is having tea in France or whatever and sees Bruce Wayne and Selina having lunch next to him or whatever, and it's like, would he really get over it like that?
Yeah.
Would he be like, well, I guess I'm over, hey, I'm good now. Really?
It's one day he just witnesses another mugging and he's like, oh, that's right. I had a whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
And I do like one thing going on, although we were a bit mixed on the ghosts, is that Bruce, his reaction, to me, he seems to finally understand, you know what? I can't control death. It took him a goddamn while to learn this, but he seems to be sitting there going, oh, yeah, I can't, can I? He gets it now, finally.
I think it's bringing together all these ideas then that reason Bruce, was doing that to Dick is because he's got an overprotective streak in him. And it's because even though George Clooney's just get over the parents thing, it stems from the trauma of losing his parents. That's why, at that moment he is seeing their grave as well. And he's also having to come to terms with the fact that, his father, another father figure, is going to die on him. And it's just there's nothing you can do about it. It's just all the anxiety that's built up on him and that he's sort of been fighting against for 30 years now, however long it's been. It's just you can't. It's going to catch up with you eventually, man.
Do you think it, Alfred dying would sort of trigger him to relive the trauma of his biological dad dying? Or would Alfred dying of something kind of natural at an old age help him process that? Okay, this father figure's dying, but it's in the way that my biological dad should have died.
It's a good question, actually. Yeah, because then you can't really rage against injustice in that. He wasn't taken from him in a murder kind of fashion by a criminal. It's just this is because again, Bruce Wayne's such an isolated guy. It's almost as if Alfred's the only other person he really knows. So he's I've never had to lose anybody else, and then to actually lose someone to natural causes is going to be oh yeah, I guess this is
and
just
it's not
a thing.
even natural causes, but taken too young. He's an older man. Let's be honest.
Well, also again because they have to tackle doing this in a ostensibly it's a children's film. But would it be better if Alfred just died in the movie and it was just
yes.
And it should be the lesson for kids then is people are gonna die on you, and that's you gotta get over it, man. It's a part of life.
I mean, being the last one, They should have.
Well,
But then you said they were planning for a fifth one, right? So it's like,
yeah.
I guess not.
In retrospect, it would be amazing as a film viewer, as an adult, if he died. But as a kid, I don't know if I would have been traumatized, and not in a way I think the financiers of this movie would have wanted.
it could have been a nice bit at the ending then, because at the end of this movie, it is him and Freeze have this interaction where it's like, I'm going to help you save your wife, and then Freeze is like, okay, I'll give you the cure for Alfred as well. But it just would have been a nice bit of personal growth for Bruce as well, where like maybe the whole scenario leading up to the final act is like, if I can just get to Freeze, then I can get the cure for Alfred, and then Alfred dies. But at the end, Bruce is like, you know what? I'm going to help you save your wife anyway, because I don't want you to have to lose someone like the way I just have. And it's like, you could have done something really nice there.
Or you could spin it. It could have been like, Freeze keeps saying, I can save Alfred, but maybe there's some kind of, his method has some kind of side effect. And Bruce is like, fine, that's okay. I'm gonna go for it. But he learns, you know what? No, I just need to let him go. It's not worth this weird, unnatural kind of thing.
Bruce is told that like 1 in 2 million people might get a blood clot from this thing. And he's like, no way, no one's taking it.
That's I think that's the parallel that should have been pressed on more, is that, like, this is the guy who's traumatized by the death of his parents, and he's so like vying for control over death, and Alfred's telling him like, you can't save people from death if it's their time. So I think like maybe they should have at least shot multiple scenes, like one where Alfred actually does pass away.
Yeah.
And then that way you kind of move it to Mr. Freeze as well, and you just go, hey, there's no saving Nora and there's no saving Alfred, and like, this is something you have to accept because that's traumatized me my whole life. That's why I dressed up like a bat, and it's like, we have to let this go. Like, this is what the whole movie is about, is accepting those things you cannot change.
I think that's one of the problems, isn't it, though? That's there as an underlying theme, but they're like, no, let's make it a silly kids movie.
Yeah, like, that would have been an interesting parallel, though, again, to Mr. Freeze, where, both of them are trying to save loved ones, basically, through essentially the same, that have the same disease, and essentially through the same cure. But that could have been like, all Batman villains are a dark mirror to Batman himself. So you could have had a confrontation where Batman's like, you just need to let Nora go. Like, like what you're trying to do here is, it's unfeasible. And whereas Bruce learns to accept that Alfred's going to die, Freeze is like, no, I will raze this goddamn city to the ground if that's what it takes. And that's what makes him the villain, whereas Batman's the hero and stuff.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like what could happen to Batman if he was adamant at saving people who, I don't want to say shouldn't be saved, but cannot.
Yeah, like learning to let go, whereas both of these guys end up like just kind of getting what they want at the end of the movie anyway.
Yeah.
But this whole thing about, stopping death and stuff, it just made me think of Anakin Skywalker, where he's like, I will even stop people from dying. Only my new powers can do that.
Is it possible to learn this power, Alfred? Not from Superman.
Oh, Alfred really is the villain all along. He's the Palpatine.
Oh, the thing is, though, not from Superman. It's like, well, actually, if you rotate the world backwards, you actually can.
Oh God,
we just need a mother box. Hold on.
I love that Superman movie, but I will fight till my dying day to say that the spinning the world backwards is stupid, and they should never have put that in.
Yeah. I never minded that, because again, that is just like, comic book,
Yeah, that goes back into it being a comic book movie, and this one does the same thing.
It's a bit too silly for me. They come up with anything else I'd accept. Anything, every other part of the movie I like. But you know what? It doesn't ruin the film. You forget it. You get over it. You're like, whatever. Everything else was 10 out of 10. So screw it.
But then we cut to. Although, has anyone got any other notes for while we're in the bedroom with Bruce and Alfred, or should we move on to the garage downstairs?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Because then we do get someone sneaking in here.
Oh, yes. A blonde lady.
And, of course, this is, that's the weird thing. We know who this is, but do you think Dick knows who this is as he goes to approach her? Or is he thinking it's an actual intruder?
Dick thinks it's an intruder, despite the fact that even from our vantage point as a viewer, it's very obvious who this is.
Yeah.
The hair, everything. Yeah, I know exactly who this character is.
I think that really marks the thing against Dick, though, because if he's after, having this argument with Bruce of like, I could have made that jump, I could have helped that. You need to trust me. You need to know that I know what I'm doing. If this is him actually trying to take out an intruder, and he instantly gets his ass handed to him, it's like, Dick, maybe you aren't cut out for crime fighting.
Well,
man.
yeah, he notices that it's a lady, and as we know, Dick is swayed by the ladies.
That's maybe Dick's just he likes it a bit of rough as well. He's just like, if I
well, we know Batman does from previous films.
Yeah, he's like, I like getting beaten up, so that's why I could totally take her out. I could take out any of these goons at any given second, but I'm just choosing to let them beat me up.
His reaction as well, because he approaches her, touches her, and he gets floored.
He gets high-eyed.
He really does, yeah, Jesus. Oh, and that's another thing, her voice when she does that. Like, hurrah! It's like, oh, hang on. Even more so, I know who the hell this is. She has a very distinctive voice. But, yeah, she does that. And Dick, I think, he does realize he kind of likes it. Like, he already fancied her. But now she's also tough and can kick his butt. Hell yeah, he's sold. He's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It is. I think it has to be like some ADR thing where they're like, oh, we need to put in this hi-ya in there.
Yes.
It's like, no, I think the flip is enough. We get it. She's flipping him.
That feels like a studio thing to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
like,
filmmaker would be like, we need a hi-ya.
we please add a hi-ya in there. It's like, okay, I guess.
Because it sounds so non-committal from Alicia Silverstone as well, where she's like, over the phone, okay, hi, yeah, got it, great, just hung up on her instantly.
Thank you.
It felt like Harrison Ford's voiceover in the original Blade Runner cut.
Yeah. It's like, we got to know she's doing a flip. It's like, we see it, but we got to know it's happening.
What do you guys, what do you guys make of Alicia Silverstone as, and I always felt a bit weird with this, because like, saying Barbara Gordon, she's not Barbara Gordon, but she is kind of Barbara Gordon.
Wilson.
Yeah, it's essentially the character, but not quite.
I think it's just it's of the time. It's Alicia Silverstone being her and her popularity and at the time and everything. I mean, you get the striking pretty blonde girl on screen.
Yeah.
It's whatever. I mean, it's a pretty everybody looks good in this movie. Everybody's just a hunk or a babe. I mean, they look great. We had the mention of Greek gods and the statues and everything like that. It kind of just goes hand in hand. I never really took it other than just she was the popular actress at the time.
I don't think she even auditioned for it. I believe she was on the Japanese press tour for Clueless. And she just got a phone call from Joel Schumacher, and apparently she could barely hear him.
And she's offer only. Okay.
Yeah, and she was just told, like, you're going to get playing Batgirl. And she's like, oh, okay. And that was it. She didn't have to, really stress out about it or anything. And it's weird because as of the week of recording, it's a bit of a weird for our purposes because we recorded many weeks back, but because of our, big buffer zone between recording and air date, we had a lady on who was a massive fan of Barbara Gordon, and we were talking all about the potential casting for an upcoming Batgirl movie. Now, that casting has already happened, and that conversation we had with her is kind of like, well, I guess I'll just have to be bonus material because it's wildly out of date now.
Yeah, we actually have that casting. It happened like just a few days ago, right before we started talking about it, which is incredible. It's I don't know if, just to talk about Alicia Silverstone first, I don't know if I wouldn't say she's the best representation of the character, but for this movie and for what they're going for, and especially with the 90s era of comic books, it makes total sense of why they casted her, just the shape of her and everything. It's like, okay, I get it. So it's like, fine, I guess, but nothing more than that.
Nothing to write home about. There's nothing
Just something
that striking.
something pretty to look at, really.
Yeah,
and
it's just Alicia Silverstone.
unfortunate to say that.
Because obviously Alicia Silverstone wasn't the only person considered like in the week of bad casting. It should also be noted that one of the other people, well, a few of the other people considered were the kind of no-brainer if you're considering continuing on from Tim Burton movies of Christina Ricci. Was apparently.
I don't know if she'd fit this character, but I'd like her in the movies.
I can totally see her doing it and fitting the role, and
But being this version.
Yeah, but also because we have also the Batman '89 continuation comic coming out very, very soon. Actually, as this episode airs, it'll be out already.
It will.
And they have Barbara Gordon in there, and it looks like it's kind of like a blend of Winona Ryder and Kerry Russell.
Yeah.
But I remember back on Twitter, the artist, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but like Joe Quinones, or I'm not sorry about
Quinones, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember him distinctly saying, like, I would cast Christina Ricci as Barbara Gordon. So I'm surprised he hasn't just drawn her to be that way. But
maybe he wasn't allowed.
It could be.
Yeah.
Could be a rights issue or, image protection and all this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do like, and this is what I was saying with, like, sure, Silverstone's, like, not my ideal type of Barbara Gordon, because they wanted this kind of, like, I don't know, in a good way for me, like, just some tall, grown-up, blonde, curvaceous Batgirl. It's like, sure, that's what they want for this 90s movies. But I kind of like the idea that they're going for now where Barbara Gordon is more like a teenager. I mean, she's more like a nerd.
Yeah.
And again, to bring up the Harley Quinn show, that's another good iteration of her. And just like the Batgirl comic that came out in the New 52, like all that kind of like, she's kind of doing things her own way. And she's kind of very young, and
Well, that's why
we're not sexualizing it. I think that's fantastic.
That's why I
think it's
kind of
great.
like this version though, because she's good looking, but she does have a quality of she's a bit nerdy. I don't know. She seems like someone you might know. The girl next door, that kind of a vibe, like. So I like that about her.
Yeah.
Not that she's not attractive. She is very much so.
Yeah.
Well, the other people I had up
That's
for
bizarre.
the role at this point was Christy Swanson. Of course, the original Buffy Summers from the 1992 movie.
Yeah.
For some reason, I always want to call her Kirsty Swanson, but
Same.
it's Christy Swanson, apparently.
Christy, yeah. That movie, right? I've only seen the movie once, yet I've watched the TV show of Buffy 1,000 times. I mean, my cat is called Drusilla, for God's sake.
Yeah, the movie is like, it's kind of like, it's fun. If the TV show didn't exist, it probably would be much more fondly remembered, because it's
like a
you're
campy classic kind of,
Yeah, you're weighing it up against like a televisual masterpiece that defined a generation and stuff like that.
Although we won't talk about the creator.
But yeah, although of course that guy was shopping around a Batgirl project there for a while, as we was also doing a Wonder Woman script, which leaked online and people did not care for.
He's playing on
talked about this.
playing on his reputation as the feminist.
Yeah. It always bothers me when people are like, oh, why doesn't Batgirl look like this? And it's like the video game version, the Arkham Knight, whatever. And it's like, oh my God, humans don't look like that.
No, they don't. They don't.
But in that vein, though, another person, and this is when I start to get into doubts here, because Christina Ricci, I could imagine, like, oh, maybe, she was approached.
Yeah.
And maybe, Christy Swanson, totally. But then they say Sarah Michelle Gellar was up for...
At the time.
And considering Buffy premiered in March of 97, and this comes out in June of 97, it's like, I know she won an Emmy for All My Children, but I doubt that that's not what people remember Sarah Michelle Gellar.
No.
She wouldn't have been, if she was ever considered for Batgirl, it would have been because of like, oh, Buffy, that makes total sense to have that kind.
In another version of this movie, maybe, right? But this movie, as was brought up earlier in the week, is stacked cast-wise. There's no way they'd throw, at the time, a random into that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Again, that's why they get Alicia Silverstone, just offered the role, because she is like without even having their audition, is because like, well, she's a rising star. Everybody knows, everyone's crazy for Cher Horowitz and stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar looks the part.
Just this part, yeah, for sure. I would argue in the Buffy vein, though, if you're going down that road, Allison Hannigan looks like Barbara Gordon. So
Plus, I'm obsessed with Alison Hannigan, so I agree.
yeah, I know Alison Hannigan, my first major crush when I was a
She's
kid.
another
so
one of mine
been...
as well. And oddly, Christina Ricci was another one who you've brought up. I'd say Christina Ricci was possibly my first crush. Because of Addams Family. Age appropriate, of course. I was a child.
Yeah.
But you get the vibe, though, because even though Alison Hannigan's stunning-looking person, she is more classically nerdy in Buffy, whereas Sarah Michelle Gellar is like the bombshell kind of thing. Another person apparently up for it was Elijah Dushku, which I know she was in True Lies and stuff, but again, I would think like that's someone on the internet's made that up.
Yeah.
Because, again, she'll become much more famous for Buffy, and she only showed up in season 3 years after this movie was already out.
Was it 3? I would have argued later. Oh my god.
Yeah, season 3 she first appears. So, although should also note in and Everything's Connected there, Sarah Michelle Gellar currently doing the voice of Tila in the Masters of the Universe show, which also features Alicia Silverstone as the voice of the Queen. So, yeah.
I guess as of right now, Leslie Grace is our new Batgirl from In the Heights.
That was the thing, because I wanted to get all excited about, like, oh yeah, so who's this new Batgirl? I was like, oh, I don't know her. Like, I've not seen In the Heights. I don't know who this person is. So it's like, let's fingers crossed that she's because if it was someone like, I know that, Zoe Deutsch and stuff was thrown down. It's like, I know her from stuff. I've seen her in things. So I could be like, I could speculate on what she'll be like. But I know people have said that in the Heights, Leslie Grace is a very Barbara Gordon-esque character somehow.
And it's I never really like getting into fan casting just for that reason, because then you set up this idea of who should play this, that, or the other person, and then it doesn't happen, and then you're like, oh, I'm so against like this casting. It should have been Mads Mikkelsen should be casted in every role I think of. Like, he should play everyone. Like, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. Just because it's like someone that you're infatuated with and have some sort of parasocial relationship doesn't mean they should be casted for.
I agree with you, but I want Mads in everything.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's so good, and then you're like, oh, he needs to be this character. He should play that character. And it's like, all right, calm down.
Yeah.
I get it. He looks like a villain. He should play a villain.
So what you're saying is Mads will play. He will play Alfred.
Yeah,
You heard it here
He's
first.
gonna be the
they fired Leslie Grace. Mads Mikkelsen is now playing Barbara Gordon.
Mads Mikkelsen is gonna be the next Harvey Dent. Don't you know this?
Oh, why not?
But I do take credit. I did fan cast Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, so I will take that one. So
nice.
But yeah, the thing I'm most excited about with the Batgirl news is Christina Hodson. She's the one writing this Batgirl. I guess it's a straight to stream movie.
That's going to become more and more normal, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going straight to HBO Max. And she also wrote Birds of Prey, and she also wrote the Flash movie. So I kind of like that connective tissue where we're having the same writer at least make these movies and keeping it all connected. So hopefully this Batgirl connects with Birds of Prey at some point.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
But yeah, I don't know. Kind of noted out for minute. Was it minute 54?
54 now. Yep, I've noted out.
Yeah.
The only note I had left was Chris O'Donnell. He's got some fangies. He's got some teeth. Talking about vampires here, you might as well be in a vampire movie.
Yeah, what is it? 53 seconds exactly. That got right there. That is that guy's a Dracula.
Oh,
yeah,
no doubt in my mind.
Chris O'Donnell's never been in a vampire movie. It's a missed opportunity. He's got the natural teeth.
Well, I'm English. We have bad teeth, as American stereotypes go. So,
that's not bad teeth. Look at that. Look at them chompers.
I was going to say I relate, but there you go.
I bet why Barbara's into dick, though. She's like, I'm so long in England with all the bad teeth, and that guy flashes choppers. So I'm like,
I never wanted to hear you say Barbara is into dick. But, okay, we can't not make this a crude podcast when he's in the movie.
I think we already had a full movie of him with Forever where every dick joke was made. It was, I think at this point, like the boat has sailed on that.
We're trying to keep it PG, honest.
Yeah. But though, because Batman and Robin is reviled and revered as one of the worst movies ever made, we are asking guests this season what the worst movie they've ever seen is. Do you guys have anything that jumps to mind for you in that vein?
Nate, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can take this one first, and it's it seems obvious, but it also seems like to a good amount of people, I am going to be the bad person right here in this moment.
Oh my God.
But when you say bad movie, I love movies. I don't care what it is. It's just an experience. I would rewatch them over and over as a kid. It's just it's something to put on. You're fine. Movies are great. When you say bad movie, the main movie that comes to my mind, and it's because it was the only movie that I have ever come that close to walking out.
Oh.
And the reason why I didn't walk out, and it's totally convoluted, but the only movie that that I made the decision to stand up and I was going to walk out of the theater was Ready Player One.
Oh.
That movie is hot garbage. I'm not looking for acceptance or anybody to say, yeah, you're absolutely right. No, I just need to let people know that the only movie that me, Nathan, has ever absolutely considered walking out of a movie theater while it's still playing was Ready Player One. The reason we did not walk out, we saw it in a group with a group of friends. It was me, it was Mark, it was a few of our other friends, and it was a nighttime event. Our buddy got tickets and said, we're going to go see this. And we said, absolutely. Yeah. We got the snacks. We did the whole thing. We read the book. We were in it. It's like, awesome. They're making a movie about this. And it's Spielberg. Cool. This is awesome.
It should be
Steven
awesome.
Spielberg directed this movie.
The
guy who directed War Horse.
The guy who directed
this
E.T.
movie.
I'll tell you what, I'll give him credit for one thing, though. Spielberg, he really runs the gamut with the type of movies he makes.
Yes.
He can make War Horse. He can make Schindler's List. He can make Indiana Jones. He can make goddamn Ready Player One. He doesn't stick to one thing.
And it's just the collective thought in our group was, I'm walking out of this movie, but I don't want to get up because I don't know if everybody else is feeling the same.
We all
had the same thought independently. So hard,
but you assume they're enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah. We walked out of the theater and I literally looked to my friends and was like, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I really wanted to walk out of there, but I stayed because I thought you guys were liking it. And they all were like, no, yeah, we should have walked. We all thought that same thought. I don't want to sit here and watch this movie for 2 hours, but I think they do. So I'm going to stay with my friends. What else am I going to do? Like, that was the thought.
That's quite cute, though. That's solidarity.
The sigh of relief that we felt afterwards, that was the most enjoyable moment. Plus realizing, oh my God, that movie was bad. We should have walked out. That would have been, it just wasn't hitting for us, you know?
And it wasn't really anything against the nostalgia of it. Like, I understand, like, that's a big part of it, and it can be a little cringy at times, some of the nostalgia. But some of it is pretty cool. Some of it is pretty neat. And I think the thing that irritated me the most was kind of like this whole white savior kid, especially when his romantic interest is a girl who's supposed to be better at video games than him, and then as soon as he comes into the picture, now she's not the best one.
Yeah,
now he is.
She needs
and
him.
He's like
now.
a fit, active white kid where it's like, why are you playing video games all of your time? You're not. That's not the character that you are. You're not the hero character.
And she has this thing where she's like, oh, I'm not perfect, and they gave her like this birthmark, but she's still kind of like this pretty white girl. And then his best friend is Lena Waithe, right? She's kind of like more hip person, and she's gay and all that, and she's a black character, and it's like, oh, okay, but she's like, you know, whatever. We just kind of, you know, treat her as whatever. Like, I don't know. It just, to me, it's like, I mean, Lena Waithe is black and gay, but she's still pretty. Like, she's still a great looking person. But no, that can't be. We have to get pretty white woman with birthmark face makeup. Like, I don't know. It's so screamed something unethical throughout the whole movie for me.
Although is that a joint answer then between the two of you, or Mark, do you have your own as well?
I have my own. I just, when he said it, I was like, you're right. It was a very bad movie, and it bothers me. The worst movie that I think is actually probably the worst movie I've ever seen, and I don't encourage anyone to ever watch it, is Eli Roth's The Green Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
I hate him as a rule.
Yeah, I do too. I absolutely do. But this one I absolutely loathe. And I get people who are infatuated with that kind of horror genre where it is kind of like, oh, I love watching people get mutilated and stuff like that. Like there's a certain subgenre of horror films that people do enjoy that.
A friend of ours
I think
is
this
into
one,
that. Ash, guest of the show, that's his favorite genre, is like torture.
Oh, cause yeah, my brother and my son, I do have a weird like whenever I hear something's really gory, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch this. And my brother does have a pathological thing of like, no matter how bad the reviews are, if he hears something's got really messed up stuff, and he's like, oh, of course I watched it. Yeah, I go 100%.
I just think this one in particular, it's a little bit inherently racist and a little bit inherently like, because it's about a group of like social activists. Like they're all kind of like Greenpeace people. They're like, oh, we're going to go protest some petrochemical company out in South America or something. So you get like all these young kids and they get on this plane and you kind of just treat them as dumb. And it's like, okay, so we're making fun of liberals basically. Like you're making fun of progressive young kids as they want to like do the right thing basically. And we should encourage that.
People
but
who
no,
are actually
instead
trying to do something.
Yeah, instead, like, Eli Roth kind of, like, you can tell the director really enjoys all this shit that happens to them. And, like, the vomit and stuff that happens to them as they get destroyed and mutilated from this plane crash, and then they fall into, like, this cannibalistic tribe, and it's like, first of all, there's nothing really wrong with indigenous cannibals. Like, they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Like, sure, we're kind of like, hey, cannibalism is terrible. But this is their culture.
Yeah, it's totally different.
And it's kind of racist to just be like, oh, this is evil. It's like, first of all, no one's supposed to be here. Like, and it's just so wrong. Like, everything about it. And then, like, so the kids are getting eaten and genital mutilation and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's so, like, you can tell he loves this. It's almost like comedy for him. And it's so bad. And it's so bad. It is so awful. And then I was reading up on how it's like an homage to old Italian cannibal films and stuff like that. And it's like, just because you think of something as an homage or nostalgia, it's like, that doesn't, like the rose-colored glasses, like you got to take them off, bro. Like the 70s were a very bad time for movies. That's why Star Wars was so revolutionary. And it's like, that okay, you're talking about Italian cannibal films. Like, that's not a good thing. Like, that's not something you should be celebrating.
Almost all of them
like,
are terrible messes of movies.
It's just one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And, like, I love horror and gore and stuff, but usually when I watch movies like John Carpenter's The Thing, it's like I'm applauding the effects, right? Like, oh, look at how they dismember that. Like, that's so cool. And it's creepy and it's scary, and yes, it scares me, but there's joy in there, in like the cinematic quality of it. This is just like, you enjoy this. You enjoy seeing people mutilated. That's disturbing.
Probably.
But to end things, on a much more positive note, we're also asking the guests this season if they have a movie that is considered by the general populace to be bad, but that you will actually defend to the death.
Yeah, Mark, you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I'll take the first one on this one this time. My pick for a movie that I think more people should celebrate is the 1995 Paul W.S. Anderson Mortal Kombat movie.
Hey!
Because I think video game adapted movies that have been adapted from video games get a bit of a stigma, right? Like, people are like, oh, those don't ever work. It worked in 1995. Like, it happened very early. And I think people don't give that Mortal Kombat movie enough credit. I don't know when the last time anyone has seen it, but
a little while for me.
If you watch it again, it is simply stunning visually. Like, the color palette, the color lighting, like, I think even in the beginning, like, Robin Shao like wakes up in his bedroom and it's all green lights, and it's just, it has this aesthetic to it that is so pretty. And then the choreography is great. It's not like the sequel where it's all just flips and stuff like that. The music, of course, everyone knows the music is phenomenal. But like the practical effects for Goro, like the movie is stunning for a video game movie.
Definitely. Like, I know it might, at the time as well, I did have this complaint, which is hilarious considering what we were just talking about. It might lack the gore, because, you know, Mortal Kombat is a very violent game. It doesn't have that. But
Yes.
everything else is spot on. Every single other thing. Whereas that new movie they just brought out, it's got the gore, but what else does it have?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, it does lack a few things. And I think that like goes hand in hand to what I was saying about Green Inferno. Like, yes, it is gory. I'm not saying I'm against it, because I love Mortal Kombat. It's one of my favorite franchises to talk about. I talk about it so much all the time. But I love Mortal Kombat. And there's a difference between how you go about it. The gore, I mean, like
Yeah.
the brutality of it all.
And I think that movie, without being gory, sort of still somehow conveys the violence. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
It's very clever. But it feels like a violent movie, even though it's not.
I don't know. Nate, do you have something you want to throw down as well? Or?
Yeah. I mean, so I would be remiss to mention if we didn't mention the show that Mark and I spent so much time discussing, and I don't know if it's just like, okay, we don't need to add that because we did the show about it, but the movie that is generally sought as bad from the general populace is Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, obviously, I'm here to advocate for that movie. If you would like me to say a different movie, I could definitely go down another path. But Batman versus Superman, people apparently do not like that movie, and I understand why you don't like that movie. But I need to tell you, your reasons for not liking that movie are probably misguided. And that is okay, because not everybody is on the same page. Now, if you don't like that movie because of your own personal things and you know, what have you, your own prerogative. But if you're saying you don't like that movie because of specific A, B, and C, then it's just misguided. That movie is incredible. That movie is a piece of art. It is a masterpiece. It is a fantastic story of these larger than life characters that everybody in the world knows. It's Batman and Superman. What gets misguided is the verses, obviously, but there's so much in that movie, and every time I go and rewatch it, I find something different to focus on that I probably didn't even, you know, talk about before. Mark and I spent, you know, a year or something, you know, 300 plus episodes, 400 episodes or whatever, talking about that movie minute by minute, like how we're doing here. But there's still new things to me. I just found something that related to Justice League on our last week's episode that we were talking about from the end of Dawn of Justice. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize that, man. You see this connection here, you know, and it's just things like that just like make me feel so good. And the dialogue in that movie, much like how this minute had or last minute had the poetry, where it's like you are literally showing me the theatrics and the poetry of what Batman is, and, you know, for Dawn of Justice, of what Superman is as well. And you're painting this beautiful picture. It's a masterpiece. I mean, the dialogue, it's written perfectly. It's incredible. I'll defend it to the day I die as it being one of the best movies, the best superhero movie, the best Batman and Superman movie ever made.
Ooh. Well, if you want to hear him talk about it more, there is a certain podcast you can check out.
Yes, you can.
Please do.
A lot of work
Find us
into
on
it.
there.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun talking about that. That was still, there's still days where I think about, man, you remember, you know, enjoying the time spent talking about that movie and analyzing it in such detail. There's so much. That movie is just packed, especially for a fan. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I was just showing that movie to someone the other day, and they were telling their friends about it, and they're like, "Oh, I watched this Batman v Superman movie the other day, and I loved how much like there was just no action really, and there's only like 2 fight scenes that are maybe like 5 minutes, and that's it, and the rest of it is just all
A detective story.
like detective and politics." And she was like, "I love that. I like." Because she can't stand the Marvel movies. She can't stand superhero movies in general. So I was like nervous. I was like, I just want to, have you check this out. And it's fantastic.
Well, I look forward to the discourse in the listeners' cave after this.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah, so I do know, of course, it is a very beloved film, Batman vs Superman. But yeah, although I think nowadays, like, there was a point, there was a fever pitch of when the internet was rabid about that, the whole Snyderverse thing. I think the wave has broken now. I think people are calming down. Well, I'm sure in certain pockets people are still raging about this, that, and the other. But
yeah, there are different ones, and I think that's the other problem is like here we are. Nate and I have been doing this DC Cinematic Minute podcast for over 4 years now, and we not trying to alienate ourselves or isolate ourselves, but we definitely don't want people who listen to the show and be like, "Oh, these are the Snyder Bros on your Bat Minute podcast." And it's like we're not those people, And we've always been coming at these movies from a place of understanding what the story is and what the filmmakers want, not what we want out of it. And there still are those sub cults of either restore the Snyderverse or release the Ayer cut and where's the Batfleck movie and how can we fight Warner Brothers for this? Like, we understand that there are those people, and yes, we were advocating for the Snyder cut, but we had, there was it's all different circumstances. Now that the Snyder cut is out, if you want to call it that, and Zack Snyder has moved on and Warner Brothers is moving on and we have other DC movies to look into, it's unfortunate. I don't think we'll ever see a sequel to the Justice League movie that came out. But that's just something we have to swallow. We have to swallow that pill and live with it. So yes, we do love these movies. We think they're fantastic. We think they're misunderstood. But we don't want to, antagonize your fans and thinking that like we're Snyder cult bros or anything that the internet would have you believe us to be. It's just
we know you're not like that.
It's just like one of those things where, and even us, like the way we do our podcast, like the guests that we have on, and some of our listeners hate it, some of them love them because either we're getting those guests of kind of like the same DCEU podcasts on the show, or we're getting people like you or Scott Corelli who love DC comics, and then they come in and they say what's wrong about the DCU movies, and then it scares the listeners, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you guys were pro, the DC Cinematic Universe," and it's like, we are, but we just kind of invite everything.
Yeah, you want to have a discussion
because it should all be accepted. Yeah, because that's the whole point of Batman v Superman. That's the whole problem of the movie, is that we don't listen to each other. We act on only our own beliefs, and it leads to problems. And that was like the whole thing about it. It's like, if we are going to be better people about what these stories of superheroes mean to us, we have to involve the different voices. And so that's what we ask of other people who find out about us. So that's all I can really say.
Hell yeah. That's a very important message.
No, I think that's
listen.
as good a note as any to to go on. So
hell yes. Preach. We will head off now into the dark, dark night. And once more, would our illustrious, wonderful guests like to remind people where they can be found online and this excellent show?
Yeah. You can find us on all social media at DCEU Minute, or the Facebook group, the DC Cinematic Minute Listener Society, or you can chat with us on your Facebook group, because we're there too.
Yes, the Facebook group, the Bat Minute Listeners Cave. Find us there. And, you know, all the usual Twitter at Batminute, Instagram, The Batminute, and look up the Sleepy Charlie Media, TeePublic, and Patreon, so you can give us a little bit of money and get something for your cash, too. You can support the show. You can wear a cartoon of Niall on your face if you really want to. I don't know why you'd want Niall on your face, but there you go.
Hey, haven't had any complaints so far, John.
And do join us again next week, where, unfortunately, we will not have our dynamic duo back, but we will have new guests, exciting you all, listeners. See you on Monday for more Bat-Minute and Robin.
Next time, like Holy Arnie in an icebox. Okay, so there's more subterfuge from Silverstone as a robber is caught on the scene, and a confused and uncaped Robin has his clock cleaned. But as Babs blabs about her prohibited bike borrowing, which fridge-encased Austrian has been ushered into an ominous Arkham wing? We find Freeze at the Funny Farm on Monday, Batmites. And might I remind you, it does not say RSVP on the Statue of Liberty. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
We'll be back.